Hello, and welcome to Confident and Effective: How to Look and Sound Professional in Every Workplace Situation. Let's dive in. I always start with the basics of effective communication. Number one, know your goal. What are you trying to achieve? Number two, who's your audience? Who are you communicating with? Number three, always put the most important information, question, instruction first. And number four, be assertive, brief, clear, direct, and precise. Let's take a quick look at what each of those means. Know your goal. What do you want to happen as a result of this communication? For example, are you advocating for yourself or someone else? Are you trying to build a relationship? Are you trying to set boundaries or notify someone officially? When you look at these three examples, each one of them, you might use different words, different tone, different style, possibly even a different communication method. Like it might be in person, or you might use an email or write a formal letter. You also want to think about knowing your audience. Before you communicate, think about who are you communicating to. Most important, what's their culture and communication style? If you want to know more on this, I do a deep dive in my other video, How Culture Impacts Communication. You'll find it on this playlist. But for right now, think about who are you communicating with? What's their age and culture? Are they from a different generation than you? Are they from a different culture than you? And when we talk about culture, we're not necessarily just talking about religion or where you grew up. It can also be things like, think about gamer culture. If you dance, you could be a member of a dancer culture. And each culture has their own way of communicating and words and phrases and slang that they use that outsiders don't understand. So, for example, if you're communicating with someone from a different generation and you use slang from your generation, they might not understand you. If you live and work in a multicultural environment, you might be communicating with people who have different first languages. So you want to ensure that they understand you, that they know the same cultural touchstones that you talk about. So if you're talking about popular culture, if you're using slang, you need to make sure that they understand. Let's quickly talk about high and low power distance cultures. Some cultures have a high power distance. These are cultures that tend to have a very strong hierarchy, and some people have a lot of power and some people have a little. In North America, in Western settler business culture, we tend to have a lower power distance. We call our bosses by their first name. We call our instructors by their first name. We tend to think of ourselves as equals. And so if you know that you're communicating with someone from a different power distance culture than you may need to adapt. Let's take a look at the needs and the wants of your audience, your listener or your reader. What do they need to know? What do they want to know? What do they not want to know? And how much background information is needed? So if you're speaking to colleagues, you might not need to provide a lot of background information, but if you're presenting to the public, you might need to provide context and background information. And then the physical and the mental environment, where are they? So if you're sending them an email, are they reading it on a large monitor while seated at a desk in a quiet office, or are they glancing at it on their phone in the hallway between meetings? And how interested are they in your message? Are they willing to put time and energy into reading and understanding your message, or are they more likely just to skim and scan and glance at it? You might not know everything else that's going on in their life, but most of us have a fair amount of stress and trauma in our private lives, so you can consider that. And then we want to always put the MIF, put the most important information first. Start with the most important information. What is your main point? If you want to have a meeting with someone, that's your main point. We need to have a meeting. They're immediately probably want to know, why do we need to meet? When is the meeting? And you can provide that information, and then you can provide anything else that they need to know at the time that's useful. And then finally, you want to be ABCD plus P. You want to help your audience understand quickly and easily. You want to be assertive. Trust your judgment, own your words. When you're at work, you need to sound confident. Don't come in sounding unsure. That can be annoying to bosses. They've hired you for a reason. They trust your judgment. They trust your expertise. So demonstrate it. Keep it brief, keep it short, and be as clear as possible from the audience's point of view. So think about, what are their needs. For example, if your boss asks you, why are you late? Do they really need to know why you're late? Or are they asking, are you reliable? Is this going to happen again? Do you have time management issues? Whereas a friend who asks why you're late might want to hear the whole story about the thing that happened on the way there. So you want to help them meet their needs. And we're going to be direct with the MIF, starting with the most important information or question or comment. The only time we don't do this is when you're giving bad news. Then we use the indirect method. You can check out the bad news video on this playlist for details on the indirect method. And finally, you want to be precise. Specific and is usually more brief and more clear. And you want to include only the content that adds necessary information. I think most of us have experienced listening to someone who starts to tell us something, and it goes something like this. So I wanted to talk to you about that meeting that we had. Yeah, you remember the one on Wednesday? No, it was Thursday. No, I think it was Tuesday, because I remember I was wearing the green sweater. Remember I got that green sweater? I just love it. But I'm starting to prefer the blue sweater. And meanwhile, in your head, you're like, oh, just tell me the thing. So we want to cut away anything that's not necessary, not useful. All right, so let's talk about how to look and sound professional in every workplace situation. Number one of the tough ones, this is in job interviews too, when you're answering questions. A lot of us get stressed out and anxious. And so I invite you, use the brace method. I like to say, brace yourself, use the brace method. Starts with B. B is for breath, calms you, gives you time to think. When someone asks you a question, there's no law that you have to answer instantly. Take a moment. Take a breath. This calms you and gives you time to think. And then repeat the question or comment on it, or both. Repeating the question helps ensure that you actually answer the right question. There's nothing more distracting than giving a beautiful answer to the wrong question. And repeating the question or commenting on it, again, gives you a bit of time to think. So it can sound like this. Oh, why am I late for work? I'll tell you. Or, oh, great question. Thanks for asking. I'm happy to answer it. Third, you want to quickly consider your audience. What do they want and need to know? I mentioned before about your boss asking why you're late for work versus a friend. So give the information that they're looking for. And make it as clear and complete as possible. Again, cut away the unnecessary details. Give them just the info that helps them reach their goal. And then end elegantly. Now, there's a little magic to ending elegantly. It's funny, even if your answer wasn't amazing, an elegant end can wrap it up and really make you sound professional. Here are 4 ways. There's a million different ways, but here are 4 ways to end elegantly. One way is just to conclude by saying, so in conclusion, I'll be late every Thursday. You can restate the question. And so that's why I was late today. This is my all-time favorite. This question is very, very multi-purpose. Does that answer your question? When you give a brief answer to a question, you're giving them what you think they want to know. And this shows respect for your listener, or reader, and they can consider for a second, like, yeah, did you answer my question? Yeah, I'm good to go. It also shows an awareness that you're willing to work with them to get that question answered. Similar to this one is the final one. Is that the information you're looking for? This is super useful with wider questions or general questions. You don't want to talk for an hour. Give a short answer. Does that answer your question, or is that the info you're looking for? And then they can direct you if it's not. Or if it is, hopefully they'll just say, yeah, that's great, thank you. All right, so that's how to answer questions. Here's that dreaded moment. Oh, bad news, we are human and we will make mistakes, and we do make mistakes. And it's painful and embarrassing and awful when we make them. May all your mistakes be little, but sometimes we make those big honkers. Here's my advice: when you've made a mistake, own it, admit it, wear it. Don't try to hide from it. And then fix it if you can. If you're lucky, you can. Even if you can't fix it, you might be able to minimize the negative impact. And then see if you can learn from it. Most of us have an inner critic that thinks they're keeping us safe and likes to criticize things we say and do. This will be a chance for your inner critic to jump in, like, hey, you're really not qualified, or you're not capable, or you shouldn't be doing this job, or you're an idiot. However mean your critic is to you, they can take a chance. So see if you can say, like, hey, I get you're trying to keep me safe, but why don't you wander off, find some coffee, and meanwhile I'll reflect. I'm just going to sit with it. And this can be the most painful, especially when it's a bad mistake and it's our fault, is just being like, yeah, I messed up. It's really difficult. And then after reflecting, what can you do to prevent this happening again? Think about your options. And then finally, especially at work, you might want to report it to your supervisor or HR or your manager, as appropriate. You can use the SBAR format. This is a lovely format. It stands for Situation Background Assessment Recommendations. So the situation is very brief. It's just objective. What happened? And it's not your opinion. It's things that you can see, hear, feel, and touch, right? So what exactly happened? Not he was mad, but he punched the wall. What's the background? What was happening before the thing happened? What's your assessment of why it happened? And the R is for what are your recommendations to avoid this happening? So here's an example. You had a client who slipped and fell on a wet floor in your office. That's a situation. Client X entered the door at 3:05 p.m. on Tuesday, May 7th, and while crossing the lobby, slipped and fell and hurt their back. What's the background? The maintenance workers were cleaning the floor and they got distracted by something else happening. What's your assessment of why this happened? They forgot to there was no warning sign about the floor being wet, and the client was in a bit of a hurry. What are your recommendations to how to avoid this in the future? Well, I suggest that we buy a wet floor sign, and I should go down and meet the clients at the door every time. So that would be a simple SBAR. Filing a report, it helps you before you forget, because research shows our memories are really unreliable. And it can also make you look proactive, which really makes you look professional, where you're saying, yeah, I did make a mistake, and here's what I plan to do to fix it or avoid it in the future. All right, that's what to do when you've messed up. Let's talk about how to appear confident even when you're not. So here's a secret. A lot of people that look and sound confident really aren't. They're sweating, they're nervous, they're shaking. They've been worried about this. They didn't sleep last night. But there are tricks that can make you seem confident. Let's start with the voice. Take a breath. As I said earlier, taking a breath calms you down, gives you time to think. Slow down. Speak a little slower. This can make you seem confident because you're willing to take up time and you're willing to take up space. If you want the advanced challenge, pause every few sentences. This is one of the hardest things to do in communication. Say the whole word. A lot of us, when we get nervous, we speak real fast and we tend to clip our words. We swallow our words. So let me show you the difference. Let's hear the difference. Don't swallow words versus don't swallow words. Don't swallow the ending. Say the beginning and the ending of the word. This is especially important when you have people with different first languages. They may have learned the word correctly, and when you swallow it, they might not understand you. So you want to be careful to say the whole word including that last consonant or syllable. So again, instead of consonant syllable, we'll say consonant syllable. Stay low. Do you know what I mean? When your voice goes up at the end, it makes you sound a little insecure, a little unconfident. Now, in some cultures, that's normal and that's fine. But in North America, in Western settler business culture, we tend to keep a low. We want to avoid the rising inflection because it does. It's considered to sound unconfident and unprofessional. If you're younger and you're dealing with ageism in the workplace, this is really important because you need to project confidence and authority. Look at your body. First of all, make eye contact. In North America, in Western settler business culture, eye contact is considered to show confidence, authority, and honesty. Also, interest. If we don't make eye contact, people will think that we're perhaps dishonest, not interested, or unprofessional. Now, not everybody loves making eye contact, and some cultures don't like eye contact. But if you need to practice making eye contact and you don't feel comfortable, don't get into a staring competition with the person. Don't gaze into their eyes. You can just glance at the spot in between their eyebrows, and this approximates eye contact. But make sure you're looking at your listener fairly frequently. Think about your posture, avoid slouching. Now, you don't want to go rigid like a soldier. You want to support yourself gently from your core. So engage those muscles and avoid leaning hands in pockets, etc. You want to use some gestures. Some of us gesture naturally, and that's awesome. Some of us need to practice. The easiest way to practice gesturing, to start gesturing, is to enumerate things, or what I call number fingers. So you can just count things off. You can say, hey, I wanted to talk about 3 things, and you just show 3 fingers. You can start with 1 finger first. I wanted to talk about blah, blah. If you gesture to your left, that's in the past. To your right is in the future. You can show direction. Oh, it was up there, or it was over to the west. And when we gesture, we typically just use our forearms. When we use the whole arm, it can start to feel a little aggressive or possibly unhinged. So you gesture just with your forearms and from about the shoulders to about the hips. So that's how to look and sound confident, even if you're not. The very last thing we want to make sure we do is avoid fidgeting. You know this, when you get nervous and the adrenaline is running around your body, it can come out in your hands. You end up fidgeting, clasping your hands, or almost worse, shuffling your feet. If the energy's coming out of your feet, some of us end up doing weird little dances or shuffling. Just stand tall on both your feet and watch what you're doing with your hands. So again, that's how to appear confident even when you're not. Let's take a look at how to say no, something that most of us want to do but are not very good at. Quickly, let's look at some reasons to say no when you're protecting yourself or someone else. To avoid cheerful exploitation. So research shows to us that if you say yes once, people will expect you to say yes to that forever. Anyone who has a truck knows this. If you've ever helped someone move, you are now committed to helping that person move for the rest of your truck's life. So be very careful with your first yes. You can say no when you can't answer yet. You need more information or you need to think about something. And of course, you can say no when it conflicts with your values. If I ask you if you want to go smoke meth behind the dumpster and you're not into smoking meth, you'll say no. So we know when to say no, but let's talk about how to say no. A lot of us grew up in cultures where we weren't encouraged to say no, and sometimes it was not acceptable and even dangerous to say no. So we're not very good at it. A really simple way is, if you want to say no, but you feel like you can't quite get it out yet, just say, hey, I need to think about this. I need to check my calendar. I need to check with the boss. I'll get back to you in a couple minutes, or I'll get back to you by end of day. So just give yourself some time. Another way to say no is, I'm saying no to this, but yes to that. Someone says, hey, can you cover my shift tomorrow? And you say, oh, you know what? I can cover the first 3 hours, but I can't cover the whole shift. So no to this, yes to that. Or you could say something like, I can't cover your shift tomorrow, but I'll ask around, see if I can help you find someone. So this is nice because it makes us feel like we're being helpful rather than just no, which feels a little abrupt. And you can also say, not this time. Can you cover my shift tomorrow? I can't help you out for tomorrow, but next month I'm going to be looking for a lot of shifts. So if you need any help next month, ask me for sure. I'd be happy to do it. And then our favorite, we all know this, no is a complete sentence. However, sometimes just no feels a little awkward. So if someone asks you, can you cover my shift? Just saying no feels rude and abrupt. So you might say, I'm sorry, I'm not available. Or, thanks for asking, I can't help you out. And there are times when just no is appropriate. And sometimes, especially if you feel threatened, a very clear and simple and possibly even somewhat aggressive no is the best thing. So there you go. That was how to look and sound professional in every workplace situation. I'm Lucinda Atwood. You can find my videos and articles at the places listed here. Thank you.